A candle trembles in the corridor, its flame afraid of itself. Beyond the stone, winter breathes against the glass like a living ghost, and somewhere, beneath the hush of midnight, a child begins to cry. She was born beneath suspicion. A whisper turned into a heartbeat. Her mother's crown had glittered like sin, bright, fragile, doomed. Anne Boleyn, executed by a husband's will and a nation's silence. And from that silence, a daughter rose, small, watchful, and unwanted. Hook. How does a child of the executed learn to live unseen? Elizabeth's cradle stood beneath portraits of ghosts. Her mother's eyes had been painted out of every hall. Yet in those forgotten corners, her name still lingered, softly, fearfully. No one dared to speak it aloud. She was the child no one could claim, a living reminder of her father's greatest shame. Every step she took echoed through the halls like a question unasked. Hook. Before she wore the crown, she learned to hide her heartbeat. At court, even laughter carried a blade. Servants bowed, smiled, and vanished without a sound. She learned early that love could be a weapon and silence, a shield. Her governesses whispered prayers meant to ward off memory, but memory never leaves a Tudor child. She watched her father, Henry, the king who could unmake heaven. He was her protector, her judge, her storm. When he smiled, the sun rose. When he frowned, worlds burned. Every smile at court could mean survival, or the scaffold. She studied the faces of those who served him, the courtiers who knelt, the priests who lied, the queens who fell. Each lesson was written not in ink, but in blood. And still, the child listened and learned. They called her a bastard. They called her forgotten. But in the quiet, she learned to read, to write, to wait. In waiting, she found the shape of power. Her tutors came with Latin and logic, with the chill of obedience. They saw only a girl meant to vanish, yet her eyes carried the fire of a kingdom not yet born. Books became her allies, her secrets, her invisible armor. Every page was a promise that silence could one day speak. Night after night, she watched the stars through narrow windows. She wondered if her mother saw the same sky before the blade fell. Was the moon this cold? Was the wind this still? A child's lullaby can sometimes sound like a prayer for mercy. Her half-sister Mary ruled the halls with rosaries and suspicion. Servants whispered the old queen's name like a sin. Elizabeth learned to kneel when spoken to smile when feared. She became a mirror for the room around her, never too bright, never too still. And yet, beneath that stillness, something began to bloom. Not rebellion, not anger, but endurance, quiet and patient, like a seed beneath winter frost. Endurance can be the sharpest crown a woman ever wears. Years passed, and the candlelight grew thinner. Her father was gone. The realm shifted like sand beneath her small, steady feet. But Elizabeth remained, invisible, unbroken, learning what it meant to survive. She wrote secret notes to herself, fragments of thought and memory. "Do not trust the noise," one said. "Even kindness hides a dagger." Another read, "Remember the fire, but never show the smoke." She learned not to speak, because silence was the only safe truth. And so she grew, in rooms colder than confession. Each birthday passed without song or crown, but never without fear. Her name was dangerous, her bloodline cursed, her future uncertain. And still she walked, small, alone, and watching everything. In the great tapestry of England, she was the thread no one noticed. But every thread, no matter how faint, holds the pattern together. Some shadows are not born to vanish. They are born to reign. One evening, when the air smelled faintly of iron and dust, Elizabeth sat beside a dying fire, listening to its last breath. She pressed her small hand to the warmth, as if to remind herself that she was still here. Above her, the portraits watched in painted silence. Her father's eyes cold as command. Her mother's erased by royal decree. Between them, she belonged to neither, and to both. Between the ghost of a mother and the wrath of a father, a queen was quietly learning how to survive. Outside, the bells of London tolled for another death, another lesson. Inside, a girl closed her book, extinguished her candle, and whispered into darkness, "I will not be forgotten." And though no one heard it, the words lingered in the air, soft as a secret, sharp as a promise. How does a child of the executed learn to live unseen? Perhaps by never sleeping. Perhaps by becoming the shadow herself. The candle burns lower now, its light breathing like a secret. Elizabeth is no longer a child, but not yet free. The walls that once whispered lullabies now whisper warnings. Every step echoes with memory, and memory is a dangerous thing. How do you survive when your own blood is your cage? Her sister Mary reigns, the daughter of Catherine, the woman Anne replaced. The kingdom that once feared Anne now worships Mary's rosary. And in that holy shadow, Elizabeth becomes a ghost once more. Her name is spoken in the same breath as treason. She is watched, measured, and doubted. Her every letter weighed like gold. Her every glance judged like sin. The court is colder now, the laughter gone, replaced by whispers. To survive, Elizabeth learns again the oldest lesson of all, stillness. In the house of Tudor, stillness is not peace, it is armor. The wind outside Hampton Court carries the scent of smoke. Catholics burn Protestants, Protestants curse Catholics. And Elizabeth, daughter of both sins, walks the narrow line between them. She does not pray aloud. She listens instead, for which God will answer first. The Queen, her sister, is kind in daylight, cruel in dusk. Mary's eyes search her half-sister's face as though hunting ghosts. She calls her sister, but her voice trembles when she says it. For every bond of love in this family ends with a blade. Even a crown cannot silence the ghosts of a mother's deathbed. In the chapel, Elizabeth kneels beside the Queen. She folds her hands, her voice steady, her faith unreadable. The priest chants in Latin, the incense curls like smoke over her head. And for a moment, Elizabeth imagines her mother's eyes watching from the rafters. But then, the letter. A seal broken, a name whispered, a plot uncovered, Wyatt's rebellion, a call to overthrow Queen Mary and crown Elizabeth instead. She had no part in it, but innocence has never saved a Tudor. In Tudor England, even silence can sound like guilt. Soldiers arrive before dawn. Their armor shines with frost, their breath heavy with purpose. They do not bow when they speak her name. Her Majesty commands your presence. Elizabeth stands in her chamber, the walls breathing around her. She gathers no jewels, no books, only a cloak, and her calm. Outside, the world smells of iron and of endings. The Tower of London waits. The same gates that swallowed her mother now wait for her step. The same ravens circle, the same bells toll. And somewhere in the wind, a memory whispers. Anne's daughter returns. Some prisons are built of stone, others are built of blood. Within the tower, time stops. Days melt into each other, marked only by candlelight and prayer. She hears the sound of footsteps above, the echoes of fate rehearsing. She writes small notes to herself on scraps of parchment. Trust no promise. Even pity can be poison. Remember the candle. Remember the silence. At night, she dreams of her mother's hands, reaching, not pleading. She wakes with the taste of fear and salt upon her tongue. The guards avoid her eyes. They, too, have seen ghosts. Elizabeth, prisoner and princess, waits for judgment in the same room that once held Anne. History does not repeat itself. It lingers, like breath on glass. The world outside spins with rumor. Some call her a traitor, others, savior. But within the tower, she is only a girl, one heartbeat away from death. Even her prayers have grown cautious. And then, as suddenly as the blade once fell, the lock turns. Mary's wrath softens, not from mercy, but exhaustion. Elizabeth is released but not freed. The walls may open, yet the shadow follows. She leaves the tower as one leaves a grave. Her steps are steady, her eyes dry. The sun dazzles her after so long in the dark. She does not look back. Some who walk from the grave never stop hearing the dirt behind them. That night, she returns to her quiet house at Hatfield. She lights a single candle and watches it burn. The flame dances, fragile, golden, alive, and in its glow she whispers the promise her mother never could. I will not perish in silence. For the first time, she feels the weight of destiny in her lungs. Not as a curse, but as a vow. England has forgotten her for now, but the shadows remember. Every prison leaves a mark. Hers was shaped like a crown. The candle burns low, its flame bending with the breath of fate. Elizabeth closes her eyes, and the room listens. The silence feels like prophecy, and beyond the walls, the storm of England begins to gather. The storm has passed, but its echo still lingers. Elizabeth lives now in Hatfield, surrounded by soft fields and watchful eyes. The tower's shadow has not left her. It sleeps within her veins. Each morning she wakes, uncertain if she will see another dawn. Freedom, when earned by fear, feels more like disguise than deliverance. The letters begin again. Careful, coded, cautious, from those who still believe she is England's hope. They call her rightful heir, blessed by heaven, wronged by Rome. She reads them by candlelight, then burns them to ash before the dawn. She has learned the art of pretending, to bow when needed, to smile when hunted. Her words now carry the rhythm of survival, each one measured like breath. And yet, beneath the calm, something begins to awaken, slow, deliberate, waiting. A crown does not appear in one moment. It grows in the dark. She rides through the countryside sometimes, her face hidden by a hood. The people cheer softly when they see her flame-colored hair. To them, she is the daughter of promise, the hope not yet silenced. But she cannot afford their love. It could be her ruin. Each night she prays, not to be spared, but to endure. The past has already claimed too many prayers unanswered. Now she seeks only clarity, a sign, a reason to wait. Waiting has become her weapon. Patience is the sword that bleeds without being seen. Messengers arrive from court, bringing gifts, glances, and veiled questions. The queen is ill, they say. The kingdom trembles once more. Elizabeth listens, but does not answer. She has learned that silence can be the loudest reply. Her household grows restless, sensing change in the wind. Some whisper of rebellion, some whisper of destiny. But Elizabeth says little. She keeps her secrets buried beneath grace. The firelight in her chambers burns quietly like a heartbeat. The nearer the crown, the sharper the shadow. Then one morning the bells toll from London, slow, heavy, final. Mary, the Queen, is dead. England holds its breath between one reign and the next, and Elizabeth at Hatfield feels the sky itself exhale. She walks into the garden alone, the frost silvering the grass. For a long while she says nothing. Then she kneels, places her hand upon the earth, and whispers, "This is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes." When fate finally knocks, it sounds like silence before thunder. When fate finally knocks, it sounds like silence before thunder. The messenger arrives at twilight, his horse breathless, his cloak heavy with the damp of dusk. He kneels before her, eyes wet with reverence and fear. "Your Majesty," he says softly, "England is yours." Elizabeth closes her eyes. The words settle like ashes upon her skin. For every joy in this family has been baptized in blood. Her crown feels less like triumph, more like an inheritance of sorrow. Even victory can taste of iron. That night she sits alone by the window, candle trembling beside her. Outside, the wind carries the faint echo of the tower's bells. Inside, she feels the weight of every ghost she has outlived. Her mother, her father, her sister, the kingdom itself. She does not smile. Instead, she breathes, slow, steady, certain. A new dawn will rise, and with it a new England. But she knows already, every light invites a shadow. The crown she wears will glitter brightest in darkness. The candle burns low, its flame bending toward her face. Elizabeth watches it flicker, a mirror of her own heartbeat. She whispers again the question that has followed her since birth. How does one live unseen when the world is finally watching? The flame answers only in silence. But in that silence, the reign of Elizabeth begins.
Dawn breaks over Westminster like a promise wrapped in fog. The river glows pale beneath the new Queen's reflection. Elizabeth steps into her reign as though stepping into memory. Every ripple of the Thames seems to whisper, "Remember, power does not begin with applause. It begins with silence." The crown rests heavily upon her brow, colder than she imagined. It glitters, not with glory, but with ghosts. Every jewel carries a name, every gem a sin, Anne, Mary, Catherine, Jane. Each queen turned to dust beneath this circle of gold. She kneels before her council, men older than her father's portraits. Their smiles are practiced, their loyalty rehearsed. They see a young woman, fragile, uncertain, surrounded by wolves. But behind her stillness lies something sharper. Understanding those who mistake quiet for weakness have never met a woman who endured. The coronation unfolds beneath vaults of golden light. Trumpets echo through the abbey, soft as echoes of forgiveness. Yet beneath the music, a pulse of unease trembles. England has seen too many crowns fall, too many gods change their names. When the holy oil touches her forehead, she does not weep. Instead, she closes her eyes and feels the weight of her mother's ghost. Anne Boleyn, once queen, once condemned. Her blood now sanctified beneath a crown forged from both mercy and revenge. Every blessing she receives carries the sound of a blade unsheathed. Days later, the court blooms again. Gowns, jewels, flattery, and fear. Ambassadors kneel with proposals wrapped in gold and deceit. Spain offers peace through marriage. France offers friendship with hidden knives. Elizabeth smiles. She will take neither. They call her the Virgin Queen, though the title has not yet been spoken aloud. In truth, she belongs to no man, no church, no promise but her own. Her heart is a locked chamber, her trust a fading candle. Love, she knows, is the most dangerous weapon at court.
A woman who owns her silence becomes a kingdom unto herself. At night, she walks through her private chambers alone. The walls hum with the memory of her father's fury. The ghosts of her sisters follow like soft footsteps in the dark. Elizabeth listens to them all, not to mourn, but to remember. The golden tapestries shimmer like sunlight on old water. She runs her hand along the threads, feeling time weave itself again, every stitch a choice, every color a cost. Her reign will not be written in conquest, but in patience. Patience, once her prison, will now be her throne. The council debates religion, taxes, succession. Men shout in polished Latin while she listens in English. Her voice, when it comes, cuts like frost through the noise. I do not desire to make windows into men's souls. The words still the room, gentle, unyielding, final. She will not reign through fire but through reason. Faith for her is not command. It is a balance, and in that balance a fragile peace begins to breathe again. Where her father built an empire of fear, she builds one of restraint. In the gardens, she watches the winter crocuses rise from frozen earth. Even flowers, she thinks, must remember what cold feels like. The air smells faintly of rain and ash. London's bells toll not for death, but for beginning. Night settles softly upon her first month as queen. The river reflects the stars, steady, unjudging, endless. Elizabeth stands by her window, hair unbound, candlelight flickering like a heartbeat. Her shadow stretches long across the floor, touching the empty chair beside her. Even surrounded by the living, a ruler keeps company with ghosts. She closes her eyes, feeling the hush of the realm beneath her. In that hush, she hears the pulse of her destiny. It does not roar, it whispers, and she knows. The crown will always be heavier than it looks. The candle burns lower, the wax bending like time itself. Outside, a gull cries over the river, and the wind carries the sound away. Tomorrow will bring ambassadors, sermons, conspiracies, and songs, but tonight England sleeps, and the Virgin Queen keeps her vigil in silence. Power, like a candle, burns brightest in rooms that remember the dark. Night falls upon a restless England. The candle of peace flickers beneath a ceiling of whispers. Across the northern border, another crown gleams in defiance. Mary, Queen of Scots. Cousin, rival, reflection. Two queens, one faith, one fear, and no mercy left between them. Mary's name drifts through the halls of London like perfume and poison. To some, she is heaven's chosen, true to the old faith. To others, she is the serpent in the garden, beautiful, doomed, and necessary. Elizabeth feels her shadow long before she sees her face. The letters begin, veiled courtesies folded over treason, ink that trembles with both affection and threat. My dearest sister, Mary writes, we are bound by more than blood. Elizabeth reads the words aloud, softly. Yes, by fate. The sharpest blades are forged from love that was once trusted. Mary's story spreads like wildfire, a queen exiled from her own land, seeking refuge beneath her cousin's mercy. Elizabeth hesitates. To deny her is cruel. To accept her is perilous. The council argues, kill her, keep her, use her. Each man sees a different England in Mary's eyes. Elizabeth listens unmoved, her fingers tracing the rim of her cup. She knows that every choice in this world bleeds. Mercy and danger often wear the same crown. Mary arrives in England under gray skies. Her beauty glows like defiance against the mist. Where Elizabeth is restrained, Mary is fire. Where one rules through silence, the other through charm. They never meet, not once, not truly. Their dialogue exists in ink, in rumor, in prayer. Each word from Mary feels like a confession Elizabeth cannot trust. Each silence from Elizabeth feels like judgment Mary cannot bear. They spoke not in voices but in shadows. Years pass. Plots bloom and die like winter flowers. Men kneel, whisper, betray, all in the name of one queen or the other. Elizabeth learns that ruling is not about power, but endurance. In her chambers, she reads an intercepted letter by candlelight, the wax seal broken, the words trembling with intent. It is Mary's hand, soft, deliberate, fatal. The lines speak of deliverance, of rebellion, of a new dawn. One letter can weigh more than a kingdom. Elizabeth sets the parchment down. Her breath catches, not from fear, but sorrow. She has outlived her mother, her sister, and her father's faith, and now she must outlive her own mercy. The council brings her the warrant, ink black as grief. She signs it slowly, the quill trembling like confession. The candlelight flares, as though protesting. When the ink dries, the room feels colder than the tower ever did. The cost of peace is sometimes written in blood. The news travels on wind and whispers. Mary meets her fate in a hall washed with dawn light. Her last words steady, "Into thy hands, O Lord." The blade falls, soft, final, eternal. Elizabeth hears the report alone. No tears, no rage, only silence. She walks to her window, eyes fixed on the pale horizon. The world outside continues. Birds, bells, life, untouched by her grief. A ruler may command nations, but not her own heart. That night she could not sleep. The candle at her bedside flickers like a soul unsure of its path. She imagines Mary's laughter, her letters, her defiance, and wonders which of them will history call sinner. The air tastes of smoke and regret. The flame bends low, whispering against the draught. Elizabeth closes her eyes and whispers, "Forgive me, cousin." No answer comes, only the quiet breathing of a restless crown. Two queens shared one kingdom of shadows. Only one lived long enough to regret it. The night deepens. Somewhere beyond the walls, the wind carries a prayer unfinished. And in that quiet, England exhales again, free but never innocent. England sleeps beneath the hush of its fog, but in the silence eyes remain open. In chambers lit by trembling flame, letters shift hands like daggers. Every secret, every whisper, a thread in the Queen's invisible crown. England slept, but her shadows never did. Francis Walsingham moves through corridors unseen. His quill is sharper than any sword. Each line of ink a snare, each messenger a pawn. He serves Elizabeth not with loyalty, but with fear, precision, and faith. Where loyalty failed, letters betrayed. The Queen's enemies wear crosses, cloaks, and crowns. Some pray in Rome, others dine in Paris, but all dream of England's fall and her soul's redemption. Walsingham hears them before they speak. By candlelight, a cipher trembles open, a priest's confession hidden in a merchant's plea, a secret folded beneath a lover's handkerchief. From whispers, he builds an empire of knowing. The mightiest fortresses are built not of stone, but of silence. Elizabeth walks the gardens at twilight, each rose reminding her that beauty blooms beside thorns. She knows her safety is measured not in miles of sea, but in moments, between loyalty and betrayal. At her side, Walsingham speaks softly. "Your Majesty, even shadows have shadows." She smiles faintly, for she has become one. To survive, she learned to be both the candle and the dark. Every spy has two masters, one of gold, one of conscience. Every message can kill a man before morning prayer. Elizabeth's court becomes a theater of masks, and every smile hides an oath. In Paris, a coded letter arrives, its words coiled tight around treason. The Babington plot. A web spun with promises, bound with hope of a Catholic dawn. One inked confession could end a reign. Mary's name appears once more buried between prayers and rebellion. Her handwriting betrays her. Though her words reach for heaven, her meaning aims for the throne. Elizabeth reads the translation in silence. The candle flickers, her breath steady, her gaze unbroken. She whispers, "So even her letters conspire." Outside, thunder rolls like judgment. When faith becomes a weapon, truth bleeds unseen. Walsingham watches from the shadows. He has caught the storm before it breaks. Yet in his eyes there is no triumph, only weariness. For every traitor caught, another waits in prayer. The queen signs her orders with a trembling calm. Betrayal like frost has become familiar. She no longer counts the lives lost, only the silences kept. Her crown gleams heavy with invisible chains. A throne built on whispers must forever listen. Outside, dawn rises over London. The river glows pale gold, reflecting towers and gallows alike. Somewhere, a bell tolls for the condemned. But in the Queen's chamber, only paper rustles. She takes up her pen once more. Another letter, another warning, another wound unseen. Her hand pauses. How many lives has she bought with secrets? The price of safety is the weight of a sleepless soul. When night returns, the court quiets. Only Walsingham remains, reading by candlelight. He writes, "Her Majesty's realm endures, because shadows stand guard where angels fear to tread." Elizabeth stands at her window. The wind moves through the garden, roses, ghosts, and all. She knows that peace is fragile, built of fear and faith, and that her spies, unseen and unpraised, are the silent architects of her golden age. Beneath her crown of light, the Queen ruled a kingdom of shadows. The halls of Whitehall shimmer with gold, yet beneath the brilliance lies exhaustion. The crown gleams not with youth, but with memory. Elizabeth stands before her mirror, and for a fleeting moment sees her mother's eyes looking back. To rule the world, she first had to master herself. Her courtiers call her Gloriana, the Virgin Queen, the living emblem of England's golden dream. But behind the title stands a woman who has buried every name she once loved, an age of splendor, born from sleepless nights and aching silence. The mirror reflects not beauty, but survival. Each jewel, each silken thread, each painted mask conceals the weight of rule. She wears virginity as armor, a myth woven tighter than silk. Her purity was never innocence. It was power disguised as devotion. Portraits of Elizabeth scatter across the realm. The Armada portrait, the Ditchley portrait, faces of divinity, gazes of control. No longer the fragile girl in her father's shadow, she is now the sun itself. The artists know what she demands. Not the woman, but the idea. And so they paint eternity upon her skin. Eyes that never age, lips that never falter. When flesh becomes legend, truth forgets to breathe. The court dances while she watches, untouched. Love is a memory she keeps locked away, a ghost with a name, Robert Dudley. His absence lingers like perfume that never fades. In private, her hand rests upon a letter he once sent. The ink has faded, but the ache remains. She whispers, "You should have been my peace, not my pain." The wind steals her words before they reach the walls. Even queens cannot command the heart. Outside, England blooms. Theaters, voyages, discovery. People call it the Golden Age. But gold, she knows, is forged in fire. Every triumph carries a shadow. Her advisors bring news from across the seas, of empires rising, of treasures found, of faiths broken. Elizabeth listens, nods, smiles, and feels the quiet pull of time. To build an empire is to barter pieces of the soul. As years pass, the court grows younger, the faces new. Her laughter echoes differently now, slower, distant. The mirror still flatters, but her reflection grows thinner, wearier. Her power, once effortless, now requires will. The hardest battle is not against time, but the memory of youth. She walks the galleries alone, fingers grazing tapestries of her reign. Each stitch a victory, each thread a cost. Servants bow as she passes, yet she feels unseen, a figure made of history, not of flesh. At twilight, she kneels before her mother's ring, the one Henry gave Anne before love turned to execution. "Did you know," she murmurs, "how much it would hurt to be strong?" The silence answers her, heavy and kind. Every crown carries the echo of a broken vow. Outside, bells toll for another festival. England celebrates its queen, radiant, eternal, untouchable. Yet within her chambers, Elizabeth removes her jewels one by one, each drop of gold a confession. She gazes once more into the mirror. Not Gloriana, not Virgin, not Majesty, only Elizabeth, the child of shadows, the woman of fire, and the queen who dared to rule her own heart. She became a legend not because she was flawless, but because she was human. The candle burns low, its flame bending gently toward her. In its trembling light, the queen smiles, as if recognizing the ghost of every choice she made. And for the first time in years, the mirror looks back with tenderness. Night drapes London in a hush of smoke and incense. The bells toll softly, and the air tastes of iron and ash. England stands between two prayers, one whispered to Rome, the other to heaven. When faith divides a kingdom, even angels must choose a side. Elizabeth's reign glitters with peace, yet trembles with peril. The question of faith in her father's curse still bleeds through every sermon, every silence. To rule England is to stand between salvation and rebellion. The Catholics call her heretic. The Protestants call her savior. She calls herself nothing but queen. Each decree she signs bears the weight of souls unseen. The true war of her reign was not fought with swords, but with belief. From the pulpits rise flames of passion, some for Rome, others for the Reformation's light. Priests vanish into attics. Men burn for their convictions. The air hums with secrets disguised as prayers. Walsingham's spies move like ghosts among the pews, recording confessions before they reach God's ears. Every chapel, every whisper becomes a battlefield. Faith itself has become treason. In Elizabeth's England, holiness could hang a man. The queen walks the corridors of her palace at dusk. Tapestries shimmer with saints and martyrs, their eyes accusing, their halos dimmed by smoke. She pauses before one image, her father, Henry, proud and ruthless. "Was it worth it?" she murmurs. Her voice folds into the silence. The portrait offers no reply, only the echo of a crown once drenched in blood. She inherited not a kingdom, but its sins. From the north comes the rumor of revolt, the northern rising. Catholic banners wave under the gray sky. Nobles proclaim loyalty to Mary, Queen of Scots, hoping to restore the old faith with English swords. Elizabeth answers not with wrath, but with calculation. Her soldiers march under a cold rain. Rebellion burns, then fades into memory. Another chapter in a nation's restless prayer. Mercy was her mask, resolve was her weapon. As the years pass, she learns the art of balance. A mass unpunished here, a heretic pardoned there. Her tolerance is not softness, it is survival. She rules not hearts, but habits. The Spanish Armada rises like a prophecy fulfilled. Crosses upon sails, vengeance upon wind. Philip calls her the Jezebel of England. But Elizabeth dons armor, speaks to her soldiers, and becomes their spirit. When kings waged war with armies, she answered with courage. The sea becomes her cathedral. Cannons roar like psalms, waves crash like hymns of defiance. When the storm scatters Spain's fleet, England breathes. A deliverance not by sword, but by storm. The people call it divine. Elizabeth calls it mercy undeserved. She bows her head before the chapel flame and whispers, "If this is God's will, let it be gentle." Even in victory, she feared heaven's silence. Years later, as peace returns, she still hears the sea. Its rhythm follows her relentless, eternal. The prayers of her people rise again, now mingled with prosperity. The Virgin Queen has become England's faith embodied. Yet at night, when the candles dim, she wonders if faith ever truly belonged to her. She, who loved both chapel and scripture, who built churches, yet doubted every preacher's smile. Perhaps her truest belief was in balance itself. The fire crackles in the hearth. A single cross glows upon her neck, small, delicate, heavy. She touches it, not with piety, but with memory. Father, I kept your England. Mother, I kept my soul. The room falls still. Outside, the wind carries the faint toll of a distant bell. Not a call to worship, but a reminder that every faith, like every queen, must endure its own fire. And so the Virgin Queen stood between heaven and earth, burning quietly, faithfully alone. The sun rises over London like a blessing reborn. Smoke curls from chimneys gilded by morning light. The city hums not with fear now, but with creation. After decades of shadow, England breathes in color. When a nation stops trembling, it begins to dream. Elizabeth's court becomes the pulse of a new world. Poets gather like moths around her flame. Painters, explorers, musicians, all chasing immortality beneath her calm gaze. She listens, she smiles, and history leans closer to hear. From her silence grew a symphony called the Golden Age. Ships set sail from the Thames, bound for horizons unimagined. Names like Drake, Raleigh, and Hawkins echo in the mist. Each voyage writes a new chapter in England's expanding soul. The seas, once barriers, now become mirrors of destiny. The Queen watches from her window as sails vanish beyond the fog. She sees not conquest, but continuation, the restless blood of her father tempered by her restraint. She rules an empire not yet built, but already dreamed. Her crown did not command, it inspired. The theaters rise wooden worlds where words become immortality. Within them, Shakespeare's verses bloom like spring after a cruel winter. He gives her age a voice tragedy and grace entwined like ivy around the pillars of time. Crowds gather, nobles and commoners shoulder to shoulder. For a few hours, they are one laughing, weeping, believing in something larger than themselves. Art has become England's new prayer. When faith divides, beauty unites. Under Elizabeth's gaze, learning returns to the heart of life. Universities expand, minds open like windows in spring. Science begins to whisper secrets once forbidden. It is an age of curiosity, and she is its quiet muse. Her ministers age, her courtiers die. The bright circle around her grows smaller, yet her presence remains radiant, untouchable, eternal. To her people, she has become not merely a monarch, but a myth. Every legend begins as a life and ends as a mirror. She walks through her gardens at twilight, hearing the faint echoes of music drifting from the hall. Lutes, laughter, distant footsteps, all softened by the dusk. It feels like memory even as it happens. Elizabeth pauses beside a rose bush. The petals have begun to fall one by one, graceful and unhurried. She smiles, knowing beauty never truly dies. It simply returns to earth. The moment feels like a prophecy, soft and certain. She gave her people more than peace. She gave them permanence. Beyond the palace walls, the world begins to change again. Nations rise, storms gather, maps fill with new names. But England endures steady, unshaken, luminous. The Virgin Queen has become its heartbeat. At court, candles burn through the night. Scribes write by flickering light, recording her reign in reverent tones. They do not know they are writing myth, only that their ink will one day become a memory. Even legends must learn to fade gracefully. In her later years, Elizabeth's reflection softens. The mirror no longer flatters, but she does not look away. Time, after all, was the only courtier she could never command. Still, she greets it with the poise of a queen who has known everything but surrender. A ruler's greatest victory is peace with the inevitable. As the sun sets behind Whitehall, the river glows gold. Its light touches her window gently, forgiving. In that moment, the world feels still, as if holding its breath for her final smile. England, reborn from shadow, now stands radiant in her reflection. And though she does not yet know it, Her name will forever mean more than power. It will mean promise. The age she ruled by candlelight would outshine centuries of kings. The wind stirs, carrying the laughter of her people across the water. And for one breathless moment, all of England feels her warmth not as a queen, but as a guardian of light. This was her true coronation, not on the throne, but in the hearts she left illuminated. Twilight settles over Richmond Palace, soft as the hush before prayer. The corridors, once alive with voices, now echo only with memory. Candles burn low, small suns trembling in their glass prisons. And in the heart of it all sits Elizabeth England's last light. Even the brightest flame must one day choose how to fade. Her hair, once gold as dawn, now glows like frost beneath the taper's glow. Her crown feels heavier these days, not with jewels, but with years. Around her, shadows gather gently, as if afraid to touch her. Time itself seems to wait for her permission to move on. She speaks little now. Every word is weighed, every silence sacred. The courtiers whisper in reverence, not fear, for they know they stand in the twilight of an age. When a legend begins to die, even silence becomes holy. Elizabeth walks through her chambers, her fingers brushing the velvet curtains, the cold marble, the faded letters. Every object carries memory the laughter of her youth, the ache of choices that shaped empires. She lingers before a portrait of herself younger, proud, unyielding. For a moment her eyes seem to meet her own. The two queens, the woman and the myth, gaze upon each other in quiet understanding. She ruled a nation, but her truest reign was over time. Outside, the garden waits beneath a silver sky. No trumpets, no songs, only the sigh of wind through old trees. She steps onto the terrace, and the cold greets her like an old friend. For the first time in decades, she feels small and free. Her thoughts drift to Mary, her mirror and her warning, to Walsingham, her eyes in the dark, to the poets who sang her name, and the lovers who could not, each one gone, leaving their echoes to keep her company. To outlive everyone you love is its own kind of immortality. Her mind wanders further to her mother Anne, whose blood stained her cradle, and to her father Henry, whose shadow crowned her fate. She forgives them both with a sigh. "Your sins became my story," she whispers, "but I made them sing." Forgiveness, not victory, was her final act of power. In the distance, church bells toll faintly, not for morning, not yet. They sound like a lullaby written for a weary heart. Elizabeth closes her eyes and listens. It feels like the sea again, like the same rhythm that carried her through storms. Her attendants kneel nearby, silent, waiting, but she waves them off with the gentlest smile. "Do not grieve," she breathes. "I have been loved enough for 10 lives." Her words hang in the air, fragile, luminous. Even in death, her voice could quiet a kingdom. The fire wanes to embers. A single candle remains steady, refusing to die. Its light trembles on her face, painting her in gold one last time. The Virgin Queen, the daughter of shadows, the keeper of peace. Her breath slows, her eyes drift toward the window where dawn begins to bloom. The world beyond it glows pale and soft, a new day waiting for a queen who will not see it. When she closed her eyes, England opened its own. The candle gutters once, twice, then steadies its flame, neither dying nor burning, simply becoming still. In that silence, it feels as though time bows its head. The age of Elizabeth has ended, but its light has not. Outside, the first bird sings. The wind carries her name through the branches, not with sorrow, but gratitude. England, once trembling in blood and doubt, now stands luminous in her memory. And for centuries to come, her shadow will glow with grace. She was not just a queen, she was England's dream made flesh. As the dawn spills across the Thames, the bells toll again, this time for a beginning, not an end. The Virgin Queen sleeps, her crown now weightless, her soul unbound, and history kneels beside her, whispering, "Rest now, Elizabeth. You have turned every shadow into light."